The maintenance bay of Orbital Station Kepler 7 hummed with the constant drone of recycling systems and artificial gravity generators. Marcus Chun wiped grease from his hands with a worn cloth, his coveralls stained with the rainbow colors of alien lubricants and coolants. 23 years old and already the best human mechanic in 3 sectors. He had a reputation for fixing what others called impossible. The massive cargo hauler Titan's burden sat in the center of the bay, its hull scarred from micrometeorite impacts and badly patched plasma burns. The ship's captain, a hulking Krillian with 4 arms and a perpetual scowl, stood nearby arguing with station supervisor Vextal. The hyperdrive coupling is completely destroyed, Vextal was saying, his insectoid mandibles clicking in agitation. Your ship needs a complete engine overhaul. That will take 6 standard weeks and cost 40,000 credits. Captain Mordak's 4 fists clenched simultaneously. 6 weeks? The cargo in my hold will spoil in 3. I'll be ruined. Marcus looked up from the diagnostic pad he'd been studying. The readouts showed the usual cascade failure pattern common in older Krillian vessels. Their engineers always overcomplicated simple systems. But there was something else, a power drain that didn't match any standard ship configuration. Supervisor Vextal, Marcus interrupted. Mind if I take a look at the ship's full schematics? The Zentorian supervisor's compound eyes swiveled toward Marcus with barely concealed irritation. This is a Class 7 vessel, human, far beyond your capabilities. Marcus had heard variations of this dismissal countless times. Humans were considered decent laborers, but lacked the intellectual sophistication for complex engineering. Most aliens believe human technology had advanced through luck rather than skill. Understand, sir, but the power consumption readings don't match a standard cargo configuration. Something's drawing nearly 200% normal power. Vextal's mandibles clicked dismissively. The sensors are obviously malfunctioning. Human-maintained equipment often shows false readings. Captain Mordak, however, looked interested. Krillians might be arrogant, but they were also practical. Let the human look, Vextal. What's the worst that could happen? 20 minutes later, Marcus emerged from the Titan's burden's lower decks with grim news. Captain, you've got bigger problems than a damaged hyperdrive. Someone's installed a massive containment system in your lower cargo bay. It's not on any of your ship's official schematics. Mordak's primary eyes narrowed, while his secondary pair focused on Marcus. That's impossible. I know every centimeter of my ship. The installation is hidden behind false bulkheads. Professional work? Probably military grade. The power consumption suggests it's maintaining a high-security holding cell. Supervisor Vextal scuttled closer, his 6 legs creating a rhythmic tapping on the deck plates. You're mistaken, human. Clearly you've misread the diagnostic equipment. Marcus pulled out his portable scanner and showed them the readings. The energy signature is consistent with a Class A detention field, the kind used for holding extremely dangerous prisoners. The maintenance bay fell silent except for the steady hum of station systems. Captain Mordak's 4 arms crossed over his massive chest as he processed this information. The Krillian's reputation as a legitimate trader hung in the balance. If what you're saying is true, Mordak said slowly, then someone has used my ship without my knowledge. Marcus nodded. The containment system has its own independent power source, but it's been parasitically drawing from your main engines. That's why your hyperdrive coupling failed. The extra load caused a feedback surge. Vextal's compound eyes glittered with suspicion. Even if your wild theory is correct, accessing an unauthorized containment system would be extremely dangerous. Only trained security specialists should attempt such work. Actually, Marcus said, I think I can safely disable the power draw without compromising the containment field itself. If someone's being held prisoner, we don't want to accidentally release them. Captain Mordak studied the young human with new interest. You would do this? Even knowing it could be dangerous? Marcus shrugged. It's what needs to be done. Besides, I've worked with Krillian detention systems before. During my apprenticeship, I helped maintain the security grid on Penal Station Omega-9. This was only partially true. Marcus had spent 3 days on Omega-9, mostly observing while senior technicians worked. But He'd always been a fast learner, and his memory for technical specifications was nearly perfect. Vextal's mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of extreme agitation in Zentorians. I cannot authorize such action without proper clearance from station security. How long would that take? Marcus asked. Standard bureaucratic procedures require a minimum of 72 hours for security review. Captain Mordak's shoulder plates flared, a Krillian expression of frustration. My cargo will be worthless in half that time. Marcus looked between the alien supervisor and the ship's captain. The situation was clearly more complicated than a simple repair job. Someone had obviously used Mordak's ship to transport a prisoner, probably without the captain's knowledge. The question was whether the captain was truly innocent or simply maintaining plausible deniability. There's another option, Marcus said carefully. I could bypass the power coupling entirely, route the hyperdrive through the secondary power grid, and install a temporary isolation barrier around the containment system. Vextal's entire body quivered with indignation. Absolutely not. Such modifications require certified engineering approval from 3 separate departments. But it would work, Marcus continued. The ship could make its delivery run, while station security investigates the unauthorized installation. Captain Mordak's 4 eyes focused intently on Marcus. How long would such modifications take? 6 hours, maybe 8 if I run into compatibility issues. The Krillian captain's decision was immediate. Do it. Vextal reared up on his back legs in protest. This is highly irregular. I cannot permit. The ship is my property, Supervisor. I'm authorizing necessary repairs to my vessel's propulsion system. Nothing more. Marcus understood the careful legal language. As long as he focused solely on restoring the ship's operational capability and avoided directly interfering with the mysterious containment system, Vextal would have difficulty filing an official complaint. 2 hours into the work, Marcus made a discovery that changed everything. While rerouting power cables through the ship's lower engineering section, he detected faint biosignatures from within the hidden containment area. More importantly, he recognized the specific energy patterns of the detention field. It wasn't designed to hold a criminal. The containment system used neural dampening frequencies specifically calibrated for Valdorian physiology. Valdorians were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors and natural predators, but they were also renowned for their strict honor codes and service as elite mercenaries. More significantly, they had been fighting a brutal war of independence against the hegemony for the past 15 years. Someone was using Captain Mordak's ship to transport a Valdorian prisoner, almost certainly a resistance fighter captured during the ongoing conflict. The neural dampening would keep the warrior unconscious and prevent any attempt at escape, but it would also slowly cause permanent brain damage if maintained too long. Marcus faced a decision that went far beyond simple mechanical repair. The smart choice would be to complete his work on the hyperdrive and pretend he'd never discovered the true nature of the containment system. Getting involved in galactic politics was dangerous, especially for a human working in alien space. But Marcus had grown up hearing stories about resistance fighters and freedom struggles. His grandfather had fought in Earth's unification wars, and his father had served with the Colonial Defense Force. The Chen family didn't abandon people who needed help. Besides, there was something fundamentally wrong about using neural dampening on a sentient being. Even hegemony's own military regulations officially prohibited such methods, though enforcement was notoriously lax. Marcus made his choice. Using his mechanical access codes, he quietly began mapping the containment system's control pathways. If he could reduce the neural dampening field without triggering security alerts, he might be able to wake the prisoner safely. From there, they could decide together what to do next. The work required delicate precision. One wrong adjustment would either alert station security or potentially kill whoever was trapped inside. Marcus had learned early in his career that the best mechanics developed an intuitive feel for alien technology, almost like a sixth sense for how different systems wanted to function. 40 minutes of careful work later, he successfully reduced the dampening field to its minimum safe level. Biosignatures from within the containment area immediately strengthened, and Marcus could detect the subtle signs of returning consciousness. Now came the hard part. He needed to make contact with the prisoner without alerting anyone else to what he was doing. The containment area had basic communication capabilities, but using them would create electronic records that Supervisor Vextal might eventually discover. Marcus solved the problem with typical human ingenuity. He tapped a simple rhythmic pattern on the containment hull using a wrench. 3 short, 3 long, 3 short. The ancient Earth distress signal that had somehow spread throughout human space and even been adopted by some alien cultures. The response came immediately, a weak tapping from inside the containment area, repeating the same pattern. Someone was definitely alive in there, and they understood human signals. Marcus tapped again, this time using a basic mathematical sequence, prime numbers from 2 to 17. If the prisoner had any technical training, they would recognize the universal language of mathematics. The return sequence was immediate and correct, followed by a more complex mathematical pattern that took Marcus several minutes to decode. When he finally understood, his blood ran cold. The prisoner was telling him they had been held for 47 standard days. Neural dampening became lethal to Valdorian physiology after 50 days of continuous exposure. Whoever was trapped inside had less than 72 hours before permanent brain death set in. Marcus stared at the mathematical sequence tapped from inside the containment unit, his mind racing through possibilities. 47 days of neural dampening meant the prisoner was operating on borrowed time. But simply releasing someone from a military-grade detention system would trigger every security alarm on the station. He needed more information before taking any irreversible action. Using the maintenance access panel, Marcus carefully adjusted the containment field's communication parameters. It was delicate work. Too much, and he'd trigger security protocols. Too little, and meaningful communication would be impossible. After 20 minutes of precise calibration, he managed to establish a low-power audio link that wouldn't register on the station's monitoring systems. The voice that emerged from the speakers was weak but distinctly female, with the characteristic harmonic undertones of Valdorian vocal cords. Who are you?" The words came in heavily accented but functional galactic standard. Marcus glanced around the engineering section to ensure he was still alone. "My name is Marcus Chun. I'm a mechanic working on your ship's hyperdrive. I accidentally discovered this containment system." A long pause. Then, "You are human?" "Yes." Another pause, longer this time. "I am Commander Kethvar of the Valdorian Resistance Fleet. I was captured during a raid on hegemony supply lines near the Cygnus border." Marcus felt his stomach drop. This wasn't just any prisoner. This was a high-value military target. The hegemony would go to extreme lengths to recapture someone of her rank and operational knowledge. "Commander, I need to ask you something directly. Do you know why you're on this particular ship?" "No. I was captured aboard my own vessel, the Night's Edge. When I regained consciousness briefly 2 weeks ago, I was already in this containment system. I have no knowledge of how I arrived here." Marcus believed her. Captain Mordak's surprise at discovering the unauthorized installation had seemed genuine. Someone was using the Krillion's cargo hauler as an unwitting transport for their prisoner. "Commander, I need you to understand something. The neural dampening field has been active for 47 days. According to everything I know about Valdorian physiology, you have less than 3 days before permanent brain damage occurs." The silence stretched for nearly a minute. When Kethvar spoke again, her voice carried the controlled calm of a professional soldier facing death. "Then, I will die with honor intact. The resistance will continue without me." Marcus shook his head, even though she couldn't see him. "Not if I have anything to say about it. Human, listen carefully. Even if you could release me safely, which I doubt, I am too weak to escape this station. 47 days of neural dampening has left me barely able to maintain consciousness. You would only succeed in bringing hegemony attention upon yourself. Maybe, but I can't just walk away knowing you're going to die in there." "Why?" The question came immediately. "Humans have no stake in Valdorian independence. Your species maintains strict neutrality in our conflict with the hegemony. Marcus had been asking himself the same question since discovering her presence. Why risk everything for a stranger from a species he'd barely interacted with? Because it's wrong, he said finally. Neural dampening is torture. Nobody deserves to die that way, especially not for fighting for their people's freedom. Kethvar was quiet for a long moment. You would risk your life for principle? Even knowing the odds of success are minimal. My grandfather used to say that sometimes the right thing to do is also the dangerous thing to do. That's when character matters most. For the first time since their conversation began, Marcus heard something that might have been laughter from the containment unit. Your grandfather sounds like he would have made a good Voldorian warrior. Marcus smiled despite the gravity of their situation. He probably would have liked that compliment. Their conversation was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps in the main engineering bay. Marcus quickly cut the audio connection and returned to his cover work on the hyperdrive coupling. Supervisor Vextal appeared a few minutes later, his compound eyes scanning the work area with obvious suspicion. Progress report, human. The power rerouting is ahead of schedule. I should have a hyperdrive operational within 4 hours. Vextal's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. The ship's captain has been asking questions about your discovery of the unauthorized installation. He seems interested in your technical capabilities. Marcus kept his expression neutral while continuing to work on the coupling assembly. I just reported what the diagnostics showed, Supervisor. Indeed. However, I feel it necessary to remind you that maintenance personnel are expected to focus solely on their assigned tasks. Excessive curiosity about matters outside your expertise could lead to complications. The threat was subtle but clear. Marcus nodded respectfully. Understood, sir. After Vextal departed, Marcus resumed his work with new urgency. The Zentorian supervisor clearly suspected something, and it was only a matter of time before his activities attracted unwanted attention from station security. He needed a plan that would accomplish 3 things. Save Commander Kethvar's life, avoid triggering a station-wide alert, and protect Captain Mordak from retaliation. The solution would require careful timing and more than a little luck. 2 hours later, Marcus had the basic framework of a plan. It was risky and relied on several factors beyond his control, but it was better than accepting Kethvar's slow death. He re-established the covert communication link during his next maintenance break. Commander, I think I found a way to get you out of there. But I need to know about your physical condition. How mobile are you? I can stand for short periods, but extended movement is difficult. The neural dampening has affected my coordination and reflexes significantly. What about combat capability? A bitter laugh. I am currently less dangerous than a sick child. However, my strength will return gradually once the neural field is deactivated. Marcus nodded to himself. That's what I was hoping. Commander, in approximately 90 minutes, I'm going to trigger a cascading power failure in the ship's main electrical grid. It will look like an accident caused by my modifications to the hyperdrive system. And during this power failure, the containment system will switch to backup power, but there's a 17-second window where the neural dampening field will be completely offline while the backup generators synchronize. I can extend that window to nearly 3 minutes by introducing subtle interference in the backup power coupling. Kethvar was silent for a moment, processing the information. 3 minutes is not long enough for me to reach an escape pod. You won't need to. During the power failure, all of the ship's external sensors will be offline. I'll use that time to move you to a maintenance airlock on the opposite side of the vessel. From there, we can access the station's service tunnels. And go where? This is an orbital station. There are no planets within range of small craft. Marcus grinned. That's the beauty of working on a busy cargo station, Commander. There are always ships coming and going. I've been monitoring the traffic schedules, and there's a Kaldorian merchant vessel departing for neutral space in approximately 6 hours. The Kaldorians will not risk their neutrality to help a Valdorian resistance fighter. They will if they don't know that's what you are. I've prepared fake identification documents listing you as a human technical specialist hired for their next contract. Kethvar's voice carried a note of surprise. You believe I could pass as human? With the right clothing and a basic disguise, absolutely. Valdorians and humans have enough physiological similarities that casual observation wouldn't reveal the deception. The Kaldorians are traders, not security experts. This plan requires an enormous number of variables to align correctly. Marcus finished securing the hyperdrive coupling and wiped his hands on his coveralls. Yeah, it does. But it's better than doing nothing. If we are captured, you understand that the hegemony will consider you an enemy combatant? Your neutral status will provide no protection. Understand. Then, you're either very brave or very foolish. Marcus chuckled. My grandfather used to say those were often the same thing. For the next hour, Marcus made final preparations for the most complex technical sabotage of his career. He carefully introduced instabilities into the ship's power grid, subtle flaws that would cascade into total electrical failure when triggered. To outside observers, it would appear to be an unfortunate consequence of his modifications to accommodate the power rerouting. He also prepared emergency supplies, basic medical equipment, portable breathing apparatus, and civilian clothing that should fit Commander Kethvar's approximate size. Everything was positioned in the maintenance airlock they would use for their escape route. 30 minutes before the planned power failure, Captain Mordak arrived in the engineering section for a final inspection of the hyperdrive repairs. Human, your work appears satisfactory. The coupling assemblies show optimal power flow characteristics. Marcus nodded professionally. Thank you, Captain. The ship should be ready for departure within the hour. Mordak's 4 eyes studied Marcus with obvious interest. Tell me, how did you acquire such familiarity with Krillian engineering systems? I've always been good with alien technology. It's just a matter of understanding the underlying principles and adapting to different design philosophies. Indeed, I've been thinking about our earlier conversation regarding the unauthorized installation in my cargo bay. Your diagnostic capabilities are impressive. Marcus felt a chill of apprehension. I just reported what the instruments showed, sir. Of course. However, I find myself curious about your background. Most human mechanics lack the expertise to properly analyze military-grade containment systems. Before Marcus could respond, the ship's intercom system crackled to life. Supervisor Vextal's voice echoed through the engineering section. All personnel prepare for departure procedures. The Titan's burden is cleared for immediate launch, pending final safety checks. Captain Mordak's shoulder plates flared slightly. It seems our conversation will have to continue during our voyage, human. I have decided to retain your services for the duration of our next cargo run. Marcus felt his carefully planned escape scenario collapse around him. If the ship departed with Commander Kethvar still trapped in the containment system, she would die during the journey to wherever Captain Mordak was really taking his vessel. Actually, Captain, I need to complete some final diagnostics on the power coupling. It'll just take a few minutes. Nonsense. You can perform any necessary adjustments during our voyage. Mordak's tone brooked no argument, and his 4 hands rested casually near the plasma pistol on his belt. Marcus suddenly realized that the captain's earlier questions hadn't been casual conversation. Captain Mordak knew exactly what was hidden in his ship's cargo bay. Marcus stood frozen as the full implications hit him. Captain Mordak hadn't been an unwitting transport for the prisoner. He was part of the operation. The Krillian's earlier surprise had been carefully performed theater, designed to maintain his cover while assessing how much Marcus had discovered. Captain, Marcus said carefully, I think there might be some confusion. I'm just a station mechanic. My authorization doesn't extend to off-station assignments. Mordak's 4 eyes glittered with cold amusement. Authorization can be arranged. Supervisor Vextal has already approved your temporary assignment to my crew. That explained Vextal's earlier suspicious behavior. The Zentorian supervisor wasn't investigating unauthorized activity. He was part of the conspiracy. Marcus's mind raced through rapidly diminishing options. In 15 minutes, the Titan's burden would depart for deep space, carrying Commander Kethvar to whatever fate awaited her. His planned power failure would be useless once the ship left the station's protective field. I appreciate the offer, Captain, but I really should stay and complete my duties here. I'm afraid I must insist. Mordak's primary hands moved closer to his weapon. Your expertise with containment systems could prove valuable during our voyage. Marcus nodded slowly, accepting the inevitable. Of course, Captain. Just give me a moment to gather my tools. Mordak gestured toward the engineering bay's exit. Your tools have already been transferred to my ship. We depart immediately. As they walked toward the ship's main airlock, Marcus activated the concealed emergency transmitter he'd prepared as part of his escape plan. The signal was designed to trigger his sabotage power coupling in 30 seconds. Not enough time to save Commander Kethvar, but perhaps enough to create chaos during their departure. 20 seconds later, the Titan's burden shuddered as cascading power failures rippled through its electrical grid. Emergency lighting activated as main power systems shut down throughout the vessel. Captain Mordak spun around, his four hands drawing his plasma pistol with fluid precision. What did you do? Nothing. Marcus raised his hands defensively. The power coupling must have failed. I warned you the modifications were pushing the system beyond safe parameters. For a moment, Marcus thought his deception might work. Then, Mordak's secondary eyes focused on the small transmitter still visible in Marcus's palm. Human saboteur, the captain snarled, raising his weapon. Marcus dove sideways as plasma fires scorched the corridor wall where he'd been standing. Years of working in cramped engineering spaces had made him agile, but he was no match for a trained Krillian warrior in direct combat. Alert! Alert! Mordak's voice boomed over the ship's emergency communication system. Human saboteur aboard. Seal all airlocks. Marcus rolled behind a support beam as more plasma bolts filled the corridor with superheated air. He needed to reach the containment system before Mordak could restore power and lock down the ship completely. The emergency lighting cast strange shadows through the smoke-filled corridors as Marcus made his way toward the lower cargo bay. His sabotage had worked better than expected. The cascading power failures had affected every system on the ship, including internal security. Behind him, he could hear Captain Mordak shouting orders to his crew over portable communicators. The Krillian was coordinating a systematic search of the vessel, starting with the upper decks and working downward. Marcus reached the concealed entrance to the containment area just as backup power began restoring minimal lighting throughout the ship. His earlier modifications to the system had worked perfectly. The neural dampening field was completely offline while backup generators struggled to synchronize. The containment unit opened with a soft hiss of equalizing pressure. Commander Kethvar emerged slowly, her movements careful and deliberate. She was tall even by Valdorian standards, with the distinctive silver hair and pale golden skin of her species. 47 days of imprisonment had left her gaunt and weak, but her eyes burned with fierce intelligence. Human Marcus, she said, her voice stronger now that the neural field was inactive. Your timing is dramatic but effective. Can you move? Better each moment. The neural dampening effects are already fading. She tested her balance, taking a few experimental steps. What is our situation? Marcus handed her the civilian clothing he'd prepared. Captain Mordak knows about the containment system. He's working with whoever imprisoned you. The ship is sealed and searching for us. Kethvar nodded grimly as she pulled on the human-style coveralls. Then, our escape window is closing rapidly. There might be another option. The ship's main airlock is sealed, but there's a maintenance airlock in Section C that connects to the station's service tunnels. If we can reach it before they restore full power, lead the way. They made their way through the darkened corridors, avoiding the main passages where Mordak's crew was conducting their search. Marcus's knowledge of ship systems proved invaluable. He could navigate using emergency lighting and identify safe routes through service passages. Halfway to their destination, they encountered their first obstacle, a Krillian crew member standing guard near a junction they needed to cross. I will handle this, Kethvar whispered. Despite her weakened condition, the Valdorian commander moved with predatory silence. The guard never knew she was there until her arm locked around his throat in a precise chokehold. He went down without making a sound. Impressive, Marcus murmured. Basic stealth technique. Though normally I would not need 30 seconds to subdue a single guard. They reached Section C just as the ship's main power systems came back online. Marcus could hear Captain Mordak's voice echoing through the corridors, coordinating the search with military precision. The maintenance airlock was exactly where Marcus remembered it, but his heart sank as he saw the control panel. The lock required a security code he didn't possess. "Can you bypass it?" Kethvar asked. Marcus studied the locking mechanism. It was a standard Krillian design, built for reliability rather than sophistication. "Maybe. Give me 2 minutes." "We may not have 2 minutes." She was right. Marcus could hear heavy footsteps approaching their section. In desperation, he tried something his grandfather had taught him during childhood. When sophisticated solutions fail, sometimes brute force works. Instead of trying to hack the lock's electronic systems, he simply removed the control panel's power coupling and crossed the main command circuits directly. The airlock opened with a surprise beep. "Crude, but effective," Kethvar observed approvingly. They squeezed through the narrow maintenance tunnel just as Captain Mordak's search team rounded the corner behind them. The tunnel was barely wide enough for a single person, designed for emergency access rather than comfortable travel. 20 minutes of careful crawling brought them to the station-side access point. Marcus had never been happier to breathe recycled station air. "Where now?" Kethvar asked as they emerged into a maintenance corridor deep in the station's infrastructure. "The Caldoria merchant ship I mentioned is docked at Bay 12. But first, we need to get you past station security without raising suspicions." Marcus led her through a maze of service passages toward the civilian quarters section. Along the way, he used his maintenance authorization to access a supply locker and retrieve additional disguise materials. A basic wig to cover Kethvar's distinctive silver hair, and skin pigmentation patches that would make her golden complexion appear more human normal under casual inspection. "These modifications are temporary, but should be sufficient for our purposes," he explained as she applied the disguises. Kethvar studied her reflection in a polished metal surface. "Remarkable. I could indeed pass for human under casual observation. The Caldorian ship is departing in 3 hours. That should give us enough time to reach Bay 12 and convince Captain Ithmore to take on an additional passenger." As they made their way through the station's civilian areas, Marcus felt a growing sense of accomplishment. Against all odds, they had successfully escaped the Titan's burden and evaded Captain Mordak's search. Commander Kethvar was alive and free, her strength returning with each passing minute. They were almost to Bay 12 when everything went wrong. "Attention all station personnel," Supervisor Vextal's voice announced over the public address system. "Security Alert Level 5 is now in effect. All individuals are required to present identification for mandatory verification. This directive applies to all sections of the station without exception." Marcus and Kethvar froze in the middle of a crowded commercial corridor. Around them, station security officers were already beginning systematic identity checks of everyone in the area. "The fake identification I prepared won't withstand detailed scrutiny," Marcus whispered. Kethvar's eyes swept the corridor, automatically cataloging exits and potential weapons. "How thorough will these checks be?" "Full biometric scanning. They'll know you're not human within seconds." "Then, we need an alternative approach." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, Kethvar stepped forward and spoke in a clear, carrying voice. "Excuse me, officer. I believe I can help with your search." Marcus watched in horrified fascination as Commander Kethvar of the Valdorian Resistance walked directly toward the nearest security checkpoint, her disguise intact, but her posture radiating the confident authority of someone accustomed to command. She was either executing a plan of incredible brilliance, or she was about to get them both killed. Marcus held his breath as Commander Kethvar approached the security checkpoint with the calm confidence of someone who belonged exactly where she was. Her disguise was good, but any detailed examination would reveal her true species within moments. The Zentorian security officer looked up from his scanner with obvious irritation. Present identification for verification, citizen. Of course, officer, Kethvar replied smoothly. But first, I think you should know that I just observed two suspicious individuals entering the maintenance section near Bay 7. They appeared to be carrying unauthorized equipment. The security officer's compound eyes focused intently on her. Describe these individuals. One human male, approximately 25 standard years, wearing mechanics coveralls. The other appeared to be Valdorian, though partially disguised. They seemed to be moving with purpose toward the restricted docking areas. Marcus realized what she was doing by providing accurate descriptions of themselves, but placing the sighting at the opposite end of the station. Kethvar was redirecting the security search away from their actual location. Valdorian, the officer's mandibles clicked with sudden interest. Are you certain of the species identification? Quite certain. I completed xenobiology studies at the Centauri Institute. The individual displayed characteristic Valdorian height and bone structure, despite obvious attempts at concealment. The security officer immediately activated his communication device. Command, this is Checkpoint 7. I have a credible Valdorian sighting near Bay 7. Requesting immediate tactical response team. Acknowledged, Checkpoint 7. All units converge on Bay 7 for systematic search and containment. Around them, Marcus could see security personnel abandoning their current positions and moving rapidly toward the far end of the station. The systematic identity checks ceased as officers prioritized the hunt for their supposed location. Excellent work, citizen, the security officer told Kethvar. Your observational skills are commendable. Please proceed to evacuation zone C for your own safety. Thank you, officer. As they walked away from the checkpoint, Marcus marveled at her performance. That was incredible. How did you know it would work? Basic misdirection principle. Security forces are trained to respond to credible threats with overwhelming force. By providing them with accurate intelligence about our appearances while falsifying our location, I ensure they would commit their resources to searching the wrong area. But won't they realize the deception when they don't find us at Bay 7? Kethvar smiled. By then, we will be aboard the Kaldorian vessel and departing for neutral space. They reached docking bay 15 minutes later. The Kaldorian merchant ship Silver Current was a sleek vessel designed for fast cargo runs between systems. Captain Ithmore stood near the loading ramp, supervising the final cargo transfers. Kaldorians were aquatic humanoids with translucent blue skin and large, expressive eyes. Their reputation as shrewd but honest traders made them ideal transporters for sensitive cargo throughout the galaxy. Captain Ithmore, Marcus approached the alien trader. I'm Marcus Chun, and this is my colleague Sarah Mitchell. We need passage to neutral space, and we're prepared to pay premium rates for immediate departure. Captain Ithmore's large eyes studied them both carefully. Kaldorians were excellent judges of character, a necessity in their profession. Premium rates, you say? And why the urgency, friend Marcus? Marcus had prepared for this question. Technical consulting contract on Kepler Station. The client wants us to begin work immediately, and the next scheduled passenger transport isn't for 6 days. I see. Ithmore's gills fluttered thoughtfully. And what type of technical consulting do you provide? Hyperspace communication systems, Kethvar said smoothly. My specialty is quantum entanglement protocols for long-range data transmission. It was a perfect cover story. Quantum communication technology was so specialized that most people wouldn't question technical discussions about it, and Kepler Station was indeed known for cutting-edge research in that field. Interesting work, Captain Ithmore acknowledged. However, my ship is configured for cargo transport, not passenger service. Accommodations would be basic. Marcus pulled out a credit chip loaded with his life savings. We understand completely, Captain. This should cover our passage, plus compensation for any inconvenience. Ithmore's eyes widened as he scanned the credit chip's value. It was far more than passage to Kepler Station would normally cost, even at premium rates. Very well. Welcome aboard the Silver Current. We depart in 20 minutes. As they boarded the ship, Marcus felt a wave of relief. They had actually done it. Against all odds, Commander Kethvar was free, and they were escaping to neutral space. The relief lasted exactly 12 minutes. "Attention Caldorian vessel Silver Current," a voice announced over the ship's communication system. "This is Captain Mordak of the Titan's Burden. Prepare to be boarded for inspection of cargo and passenger manifests." Through the ship's viewports, Marcus could see the massive bulk of Mordak's cargo hauler maneuvering alongside them. The Krillian captain had somehow tracked them to the Caldorian ship. Captain Ithmor's gills flushed dark blue with alarm. "What is the meaning of this? I am a registered neutral trader operating under Caldorian commercial license." "Your neutrality is respected, Captain," Mordak's voice continued. "However, we have reason to believe you are unknowingly carrying fugitive passengers. Cooperation with our investigation will ensure no interference with your trading privileges." Marcus and Kethvar exchanged grim looks. There was nowhere left to run. "Sarah," Marcus said quietly, using her false name in case the communications were being monitored, "I think our technical consulting contract just became a lot more complicated." "Indeed it has," she replied. "But perhaps we have been approaching this problem from the wrong angle." Before Marcus could ask what she meant, Kethvar strode to the ship's communication panel. "Captain Mordak, this is Technical Specialist Mitchell. I believe there's been a significant misunderstanding." A long pause. Then, "Specialist Mitchell, you will prepare for immediate transfer to my vessel for questioning." "Actually, Captain, I think you'll be interested in what I've discovered during my analysis of quantum communication protocols in this sector. It seems someone has been intercepting and decoding hegemony military communications using highly sophisticated encryption-breaking algorithms." Marcus stared at her in amazement. She was bluffing with information that could only have come from her time as a resistance commander. "Explain." Mordak's voice carried a new note of interest. "The intercepted communications revealed detailed information about covert prisoner transport operations, including specific ship registrations, crew identities, and transfer schedules. Whoever developed these algorithms has access to intelligence that could severely compromise hegemony operations in this entire sector." Another long pause. Marcus could almost hear Captain Mordak weighing the implications. If resistance forces had indeed broken hegemony encryption codes, it would represent a massive security breach worth far more than recapturing a single escaped prisoner. "You claim to have evidence of such activities?" "Complete data archives, Captain, including the algorithms themselves and records of all intercepted communications. However, the data is secured with quantum encryption that requires my personal biometric authorization to access." Marcus began to understand her strategy. She was offering Captain Mordak intelligence that would be incredibly valuable to the hegemony, but only if she remained alive and cooperative. "These archives, where are they located?" "Secure storage facility on Kepler Station, accessible only through my personal authorization codes. The data could provide the hegemony with complete insight into resistance communication capabilities and operational planning." The silence stretched for nearly 5 minutes. Marcus could imagine Mordak consulting with whatever hegemony intelligence officers were backing his operation. Finally, the Krillian captain's voice returned. "Specialist Mitchell, you will transfer to my vessel immediately to discuss the terms of data recovery." "I'm afraid that won't be possible, Captain." "Explain." Kethvar's voice remained perfectly calm. "The security protocols for the data archives include automatic deletion sequences that activate if I fail to provide scheduled authorization confirmations every 48 hours. My last confirmation was transmitted 36 hours ago." Marcus held his breath. She was claiming that killing or imprisoning her would result in the destruction of the very intelligence she was offering. "However," she continued, "I am prepared to negotiate a reasonable arrangement for providing this intelligence to appropriate hegemony authorities." "What arrangement?" "Safe passage to Kepler Station aboard this neutral vessel, where I can access the data archives and transfer the information to your intelligence contacts. In exchange for my cooperation, I require guaranteed safe passage to neutral space upon completion of the data transfer. It was a masterstroke of tactical negotiation. Kethvar was offering the hegemony something potentially more valuable than her capture, while simultaneously ensuring her own freedom. These negotiations will require authorization from my superiors. Of course. However, Captain, I should point out that my next scheduled authorization confirmation is required in 11 hours and 37 minutes. Any delay in reaching an agreement could result in the automatic destruction of the data archives. The time pressure was perfect. Too little time for extended bureaucratic review, but enough to verify her story and arrange the intelligence transfer. Very well, Specialist Mitchell. You will proceed to Kepler Station aboard the Caldorian vessel. My ship will escort you to ensure your safe arrival. As the Titan's burden moved into escort formation alongside the Silver Current, Captain Ithmore approached them with obvious confusion. I confess, friends, that I do not understand what just occurred. But it appears your technical consulting contract has attracted significant attention from powerful interests. Marcus nodded solemnly. Sometimes advanced technology attracts more attention than we anticipate, Captain. Indeed. Well, at least you will have military escort for your journey. Though I do hope your work at Kepler Station proceeds more smoothly. As the small convoy entered hyperspace, Marcus found himself wondering whether Commander Kethvar actually had access to the intelligence archive she had described, or whether she was executing the most audacious bluff in military history. Either way, they were alive and heading toward a destination where hegemony authority was limited. That was far better than their situation had been 3 hours earlier. Sarah, he said quietly, remind me never to play poker with you. Poker? Human card game. It involved a lot of bluffing. Kethvar smiled. Ah, yes, I think I would enjoy poker very much. The journey to Kepler Station took 18 hours through hyperspace. Marcus spent most of that time wondering what would happen when they arrived, and Commander Kethvar couldn't produce the intelligence archive she had promised. The hegemony wouldn't simply accept failure and allow them to depart peacefully. Kethvar seemed remarkably calm for someone whose bluff would be called within hours. She spent her time studying the technical manuals in the ship's small library, claiming she needed to refresh her knowledge of quantum communication protocols for her upcoming presentation. Sarah, Marcus said during their last private moment before arrival, I have to ask, do those intelligence archives actually exist? Her golden eyes met his with quiet amusement. Marcus, what do you know about Valdorian military doctrine? Not much. You're famous for individual combat skills and honor codes. True, but incomplete. Valdorian warriors are also trained in comprehensive strategic thinking. We prepare for multiple contingencies in every operation. Meaning that when I was captured 48 days ago, I was not aboard a simple raiding vessel. I commanded the intelligence ship Knight's Edge, which had just completed a 6-month mission penetrating hegemony communication networks. Marcus felt his stomach drop. You actually have the archives. Secure quantum storage, hidden in a location that would take the hegemony considerable time to discover through conventional means. The automated deletion sequence I described is quite real, but you're going to give them the intelligence? After fighting against them for years. Kethvar's expression grew serious. Marcus, you need to understand something about the nature of warfare between advanced civilizations. Information that seems valuable today may become useless tomorrow as encryption methods evolve and communication protocols change. So the intelligence isn't as valuable as you claimed? Oh, it is extremely valuable. For approximately the next 6 months. After that, the hegemony will have implemented new security measures that render most of the intercepted data obsolete. Marcus began to understand. You're trading information that has a limited shelf life for your freedom and safe passage. Correct. And in doing so, I am ensuring that you, who risked everything to save a stranger, will not suffer consequences for your heroism. Before Marcus could respond, Captain Ithmore announced their arrival at Kepler Station. Through the viewports, Marcus could see the massive research facility hanging in space like a technological jewel. Ships of various species moved in carefully controlled traffic patterns around the station's multiple docking bays. The Titan's burden maintained escort formation as they approached the station. Captain Mordak's voice crackled over the communications system. Specialist Mitchell, prepare for immediate transfer to station security for processing of your intelligence materials. Understood, Captain. I will need access to the station's quantum communication facility to retrieve the archives from secure storage. 20 minutes later, Marcus and Kethvar found themselves in the station's administrative center, surrounded by hegemony intelligence officers who had apparently been waiting for their arrival. The lead officer, a tall Xerian with crystalline skin, introduced himself as Director Zathmore. Specialist Mitchell, we are prepared to receive your intelligence transfer. However, the magnitude of your claims requires extensive verification before any agreement regarding your future status can be finalized. Kethvar nodded professionally. Of course, Director. The verification process will require access to a secure quantum terminal and approximately 2 hours for data retrieval and initial analysis. Director Zathmore gestured toward a heavily secured section of the administrative center. You will work under direct supervision to ensure the integrity of the transfer process. As they moved toward the secured area, Marcus noticed something that filled him with apprehension. The hegemony officers were treating this as a permanent intelligence acquisition, not a temporary exchange. They clearly intended to hold Kethvar indefinitely once they confirmed the value of her information. The secure quantum facility was impressive even by station standards. Banks of processing equipment filled a chamber shielded against any form of external monitoring. Kethvar approached the central terminal with the confidence of someone familiar with advanced communication technology. I will need privacy for the initial access protocols, she told Director Zathmore. The security algorithms require biometric confirmation that cannot be observed by others without triggering the deletion sequence. Unacceptable. All activities must be monitored for security purposes. Kethvar frugid. Then, I suggest you contact the technical specialists who designed your own security protocols, Director. They will confirm that quantum-encrypted biometric locks cannot be bypassed through observation. It was a brilliant deflection. She was using the hegemony's own security technology against them, claiming requirements that they couldn't dispute without admitting ignorance of their own systems. After a brief consultation with his technical staff, Director Zathmore agreed to partial privacy during the initial access sequence. You will have 5 minutes for biometric confirmation. After that, all activities will be fully monitored. Agreed. As soon as the monitoring equipment was temporarily disabled, Kethvar moved with startling speed. Instead of accessing intelligence archives, she began uploading something entirely different to the station's quantum communication system. What are you doing? Marcus whispered. Creating an insurance policy, she replied without taking her eyes from the terminal. The real intelligence archives are exactly where I claimed, and they do contain valuable information. However, I'm also transmitting a complete record of my imprisonment, Captain Mordak's involvement, and the illegal use of neural dampening technology. Transmitting to who? The Valdorian Resistance, the Neutral Planets Council, and the Galactic Human Rights Monitoring Organization. If the hegemony fails to honor our agreement, this entire operation will become a public relations disaster. Marcus watched in amazement as she simultaneously accessed actual intelligence data while secretly documenting the hegemony's illegal activities. It was a level of multitasking that spoke to extensive training in covert operations. Time, Director Zathmore announced, reactivating the monitoring systems. For the next hour, Kethvar provided a steady stream of intercepted hegemony communications, encryption algorithms, and strategic intelligence that clearly impressed the intelligence officers. Their greedy excitement was obvious as they realized the scope of information she was providing. Specialist Mitchell, Director Zathmore, said finally, the quality and quantity of this intelligence exceeds our expectations. We are prepared to discuss expanded cooperation arrangements, meaning permanent employment with hegemony intelligence services. Your knowledge and capabilities would be extremely valuable in ongoing operations. Marcus felt his heart sink. This was exactly what he had feared. The hegemony intended to keep Kethvar regardless of any prior agreements. Director, our arrangement was for intelligence transfer in exchange for safe passage to neutral space. Circumstances have evolved, Specialist. The value of your continued cooperation far exceeds the original scope of our agreement. Kethvar's expression remained calm. I see. And if I decline this generous offer, then you'll be detained for extended debriefing on your knowledge of resistance operations, communication methods, and strategic capabilities. It was exactly the betrayal Marcus had expected, but Kethvar seemed unsurprised. Director, I believe you should review your incoming communications before finalizing that decision. Zathmore's crystalline features reflected confusion. Explain. Check your priority message queue. I suspect you will find some interesting correspondence from your superiors. The intelligence director activated his communication terminal with obvious skepticism. As he read the incoming messages, his expression shifted from confusion to alarm to barely controlled rage. What did you do? He demanded. I documented our interaction and transmitted copies to appropriate oversight organizations, as I mentioned during our initial arrangement. It seems your superiors are not pleased to learn about unauthorized prisoner transport operations, illegal use of neural dampening technology, and violations of neutral space protocols. Marcus could see additional messages appearing on Zathmore's terminal, each one apparently worse than the last. The Neutral Planets Council has filed formal complaints. The Human Rights Monitoring Organization is demanding immediate investigation. Your own Hegemony Ethics Committee is requesting detailed explanations of operational procedures. Director Zathmore's skin flushed darker with fury. You have compromised critical intelligence operations. No, Director. I have simply ensured that intelligence operations comply with the legal and ethical standards that the hegemony publicly claims to support. Marcus watched the power dynamic in the room shift completely. What had begun as an interrogation of captured fugitives had become a political crisis for the hegemony intelligence services. However, Kethvar continued, I remain prepared to honor our original agreement. Complete intelligence transfer in exchange for safe passage to neutral space. For several minutes, Director Zathmore consulted frantically with his superiors through secure communications. When he finally turned back to them, his manner was coldly professional. Your passage to neutral space is approved. However, you are both permanently banned from entering hegemony territory in the future. Acceptable, Kethvar replied immediately. 2 hours later, Marcus found himself aboard a neutral transport heading for the independent systems beyond hegemony space. Kethvar sat beside him, no longer bothering to maintain her human disguise. Commander, Marcus said, I have to ask, was any of this planned from the beginning? Kethvar smiled. Marcus, when I was captured, I prepared for multiple scenarios including rescue, escape, and negotiated release. What I did not prepare for was a human mechanic risking his life and career to save a stranger. So what happens now? Now you have a decision to make. You can return to human space and resume your career as a mechanic, or the Valdorian Resistance can always use skilled engineers who understand alien technology, particularly those with proven courage and integrity. Marcus considered the offer. His old life was effectively over. The hegemony's ban would make it difficult to find work in most sectors. But more importantly, he had discovered something about himself during their escape. What would I be doing? Helping to maintain the ships that carry freedom fighters to liberate other prisoners. Ensuring that captured warriors like myself can return home to their families. Marcus thought about Commander Kethvar's 47 days of imprisonment, about Captain Mordak's casual willingness to transport prisoners to unknown fates, about the systematic violations of sentient rights that the hegemony practiced while claiming moral authority. Commander, I think I'd like to learn more about Valdorian engineering systems. Kethvar's smile lit up the transport cabin. Welcome to the Resistance, Chief Engineer Chun. As their ship jumped to hyperspace, carrying them toward worlds where freedom meant more than profit. Marcus realized that his grandfather would have been proud. Sometimes the right thing to do was indeed the dangerous thing to do. But that's what made it matter. 3 months later, Marcus stood in the engineering bay of the Resistance flagship Liberator, watching as rescued prisoners from a dozen different species worked together to maintain the ships that would free others like themselves. Among them was Captain Mordak. The Krillian had approached the Resistance through intermediaries, claiming that his cooperation with hegemony intelligence had been coerced through threats against his family. Whether that was true or simply convenient, his knowledge of hegemony transport operations had already led to the liberation of 43 political prisoners. Chief Engineer, Commander Kethvar said as she entered the engineering section, "We have received intelligence about another prisoner transport. Are you prepared for another rescue mission?" Marcus looked around at the diverse crew of former prisoners, idealistic volunteers, and reformed collaborators who now called the Liberator home. "Always ready, Commander. That's what we do." And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, another human mechanic was about to discover that sometimes fixing what's broken requires more than just technical expertise. Sometimes it requires the courage to do what's right.